When a 76-year-old woman is humiliated at a pharmacy just for asking about extra charges, everyone turns a blind eye, until a quiet voice speaks up from the back of the line. No one expected Morgan Freeman to be there, but what he did next shook the entire store, exposed a hidden scam, and reminded the world why dignity should never come with a price tag. This is a story about courage, respect, and an unexpected hero. On a bustling Tuesday afternoon in the heart of Prague, the cobblestone streets of Old Town buzzed with tourists snapping photos of the astronomical clock and locals weaving through the crowds. Tucked away on a narrow side street, the Brightwell Pharmacy stood as a modest beacon of modernity amid the city's historic charm. Its glass storefront gleamed under the gray autumn sky, promising relief to those who entered. Inside, however, the air was thick with tension. Marietta Cole, a 76-year-old retired librarian from Atlanta, had been spending the past month in Prague visiting her granddaughter, who'd moved there to teach English. With her silver hair neatly pinned back and a worn leather satchel slung over her shoulder, Marietta approached the counter, clutching a crumpled receipt. Her soft southern drawl cut through the hum of the pharmacy as she addressed the young cashier, a wiry Czech girl named Clara Novak. "Excuse me, miss," Marietta began, her voice polite but firm. "I think there's been a mistake with my bill. These charges for my blood pressure meds, they're nearly double what I paid last week. Could you check it for me?" Clara, barely 22, with dyed blonde hair and a bored expression, didn't bother looking up from her phone. She sighed loudly, tapping her chipped nails on the counter. "It's correct," she said flatly, her English clipped with a heavy accent. "Prices change. Maybe you don't understand how it works here." Marietta blinked, taken aback but undeterred. "I've been coming here for weeks, and I know what I paid before. I'd just like you to double-check, please." The line behind Marietta grew restless, a mix of locals and tourists shifting their weight and muttering under their breath. Clara rolled her eyes and finally glanced at the receipt, only to toss it back across the counter. "You're wasting my time, Babichka," she sneered, using the Czech word for grandmother with a mocking edge. "If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Or maybe you're just too old to figure it out." A few customers snickered, and Marietta's cheeks flushed. She adjusted her glasses, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the sting of humiliation. Before she could respond, a stocky man in a cheap suit emerged from the back office. Paul Riggins, the British expat manager of Brightwell, had a reputation for running a tight ship and little patience for complaints. He'd overheard the exchange and strode over, his lips curling into a condescending smirk. "What's the problem now?" he barked, eyeing Marietta like she was a child throwing a tantrum. "Look, love, if you can't keep up with the system, that's on you. We've got real customers to serve, not confused old ladies who can't read a bill." The words hit Marietta like a slap. She opened her mouth to protest, but the weight of the room, the stares, the laughter, the dismissal, pressed down on her. She felt small, invisible, a black woman from Georgia reduced to a stereotype in a foreign land. It wasn't the first time she'd faced this kind of treatment, but it never got easier. Then, from the back of the line, a voice cut through the noise, calm, deep, and commanding. "Is this how you treat people who ask questions?" The pharmacy fell silent. Heads turned as a tall figure stepped forward, his presence filling the room like a quiet storm. He wore a dark coat and a wool cap pulled low, but there was no mistaking the gravitas in his stride or the rich timbre of his voice. It was Morgan Freeman. Yes, the Morgan Freeman, his face unmistakable even in this unlikely corner of Prague. He'd been in the city for a film festival, though no one in the pharmacy knew that yet. He'd slipped in to pick up a prescription, unnoticed until now. Clara froze, her bravado evaporating. Paul's smirk faltered as Morgan approached the counter, his dark eyes locking onto the manager with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. "I asked a question," Morgan said, his tone steady but laced with steel. "Is this how you run your business? By mocking a woman who's done nothing but ask for clarity?" Paul stammered, "Sir, I didn't mean any harm. It's just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," Morgan interrupted, his voice rising just enough to make the room shrink. "No, what I see is disrespect. What I see is a woman being humiliated for no reason other than your impatience. And I wonder, do you treat everyone this way? Or just the ones you think won't fight back?" Marietta stood straighter, her hands steadying as she watched Morgan dismantle the scene with nothing but words. The customers shifted uncomfortably, some looking away, others nodding faintly. Clara's face burned red, and Paul's attempt at a defense crumbled under Morgan's gaze. I'll look into it," Paul muttered, snatching the receipt from the counter. "We'll sort it out." Morgan didn't relent. "You'll do more than that. You'll apologize. To her. Right now." The silence stretched taut, a wire ready to snap. Paul's jaw tightened, but he knew he was cornered. "I'm sorry," he said through gritted teeth, barely meeting Marietta's eyes. "And you," Morgan turned to Clara, who looked like she wanted to disappear. "You're young. You've got time to learn that dignity isn't optional. Start now." Clara mumbled an apology, her voice barely audible. Morgan nodded once, then turned to Marietta. "Ma'am, you all right?" She managed a small smile, her voice soft but steady. "I am now. Thank you." Morgan tipped his cap slightly. "No need. Just don't let anyone make you feel small. You're worth more than that." As he walked out, the pharmacy erupted into whispers. Marietta collected her corrected bill. Paul had found the error and left with her head high. But the story didn't end there. Word of the encounter spread like wildfire through Prague's expat community, then beyond, igniting debates about respect, race, and power in a city that prided itself on its history, but often ignored its present. The encounter at Brightwell Pharmacy didn't fade into the Prague afternoon like Marietta had expected. By evening, whispers of Morgan Freeman's intervention had trickled onto social media. A tourist in line had filmed the whole thing on her phone. Shaky footage of Clara's sneer, Paul's bluster, and Morgan's quiet authority cutting through it all. The video hit X with the caption, "Morgan Freeman shuts down rudeness in Prague Pharmacy. Legend." Within hours, it had thousands of views, retweets, and comments, some praising Morgan's grace, others decrying the staff's behavior. A few even zeroed in on Marietta, speculating about her American accent and why she'd been targeted. Marietta, oblivious to the growing storm, sat in her granddaughter's cramped apartment near the Vltava River, sipping tea and recounting the day. Her granddaughter, Lena, a wiry 28-year-old with a nose ring and a passion for justice, scrolled through her phone, wide-eyed. "Grandma, you're viral," she said, turning the screen to show the video. Marietta squinted at it, then chuckled softly. "Well, I'll be. Didn't expect that." But the attention wasn't all positive. By morning, the story had split Prague's online community. Some locals defended Clara and Paul, claiming Marietta had overreacted. "She's a tourist. She doesn't get how things work here." Others pointed to deeper issues, the casual disdain for foreigners, especially older ones, and the unspoken racial undertones that lingered in a city where diversity was still a novelty. A Czech news outlet picked it up, running a headline, "Hollywood star confronts local pharmacy. Is this racism or rudeness?" Back at Brightwell, Paul Riggins was sweating. The pharmacy's corporate office in London had called, demanding an explanation. Customers were boycotting, leaving scathing reviews online. Disgusting service, racist and rude. Paul tried to spin it, telling a reporter, It was a misunderstanding. We're not prejudiced. Our staff just had a bad day. Clara, meanwhile, had gone silent, deleting her social media after a flood of hate messages. Morgan Freeman, staying at a discreet hotel that's near Charles Bridge, watched the fallout unfold. He hadn't meant to start a crusade, just to right a wrong he'd seen. But as the story grew, he agreed to a brief interview with a local journalist. Sitting in a leather armchair, his voice steady as ever, he said, "This isn't about me. It's about what we let slide. That woman, Marietta, she deserved respect, not ridicule. We all do. And if we don't call it out, it festers." His words hit like a thunderclap. Protests sprang up outside Brightwell, small but vocal, with signs reading "Dignity for All" and "No More Silence." Marietta, reluctantly dragged into the spotlight, joined Lena at one, holding a handwritten sign, "Respect isn't optional." She spoke to the crowd, her voice trembling at first, then growing firm. "I've lived through worse than this. Back home in the South, where folks didn't even pretend to be kind. But it's 2025 and I'm tired of it following me everywhere. Aren't you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered but heavy. The protests drew a mix of supporters and detractors. Some shouted that it was just a pharmacy spat, not a race issue. Others, immigrants, minorities, the elderly, shared their own stories of dismissal in Prague's shops, offices, and streets. The city, known for its fairy tale beauty, was forced to look at its uglier edges. Then came the twist. A week later, an ex-user posted a grainy photo of Clara Novak from years earlier, posing with a group at a far-right rally in Brno. The caption read, "Brightwell cashier has a history, surprised?" The image spread fast, fueling outrage. Clara issued a tearful video apology, claiming she'd been young and stupid then, not now. Paul fired her on the spot, hoping to save face, but the damage was done. Brightwell's reputation tanked, and corporate announced an internal review. Marietta watched it all from Lena's apartment, conflicted. She'd wanted accountability, not a witch hunt. "I didn't mean for that girl to lose everything," she told Lena, her brow furrowed. Lena shrugged. "She made her choices, Grandma. But yeah, it's messy." Morgan, preparing to leave Prague, met Marietta one last time at a quiet cafe. He slid into the booth across from her, his smile warm. "You stirred something up, didn't you?" he said. "Didn't plan to," she replied. "Just wanted my bill fixed." He nodded. "Sometimes that's how it starts. One question, one stand. You did good, Marietta." She smiled faintly. "So did you." As autumn deepened, Prague settled into an uneasy calm. Brightwell replaced Paul with a new manager, a soft-spoken Czech woman who posted an apology on the store's window and offered discounts to seniors. Clara vanished from the public eye, her fate unknown. The protests faded, but the conversations didn't. Cafes and classrooms buzzed with debates. Was it racism? Ageism? Just bad manners? Or all of it, tangled together? Marietta returned to Atlanta, her suitcase heavier with memories than souvenirs. She resumed her quiet life, library visits, church on Sundays. But the experience lingered. She started volunteering at a community center, teaching seniors how to spot scams and stand up for themselves. "No one's too old to fight back," she'd say, her eyes sharp. Morgan Freeman moved on to his next project, but his Prague moment became a footnote in his legend, a reminder that even icons could shift the ground with a few well-timed words. He never commented on it again, letting the story speak for itself. Back in Prague, Lena kept pushing. She started a blog, Voices of the Overlooked, collecting stories from the city's margins, Roma families, African students, gray-haired pensioners. It gained traction, sparking a quiet movement. The city didn't change overnight, but cracks formed in its polished facade, letting light seep through. The story's end wasn't tidy. Brightwell survived, but its name carried a stain. Clara's life veered into shadow. Did she learn or harden? Paul slunk back to England, grumbling about cancel culture. Marietta and Morgan, unlikely allies, left marks that rippled outward, touching lives they'd never know. And in Prague, on another Tuesday afternoon, an old man shuffled into a different pharmacy, hesitating as he questioned his bill. The cashier, a young man this time, paused, then smiled. "Let me check that for you, sir." No sneers, no rush, just a moment of grace. Was it enough? That was the question left hanging, drifting over the Vltava like mist. Racism, disrespect, indifference. They didn't vanish with one confrontation or a viral video. But maybe, just maybe, the next Marietta wouldn't have to wait for a Morgan to speak up. Maybe she'd find her voice first, or someone else would. The story closed not with a bow, but with a door ajar, daring the world to step through.